Welcome you to the new season of World Wave Audio, where we slice through the noise and pull back the curtain on the most complex issues shaping our world.
Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a situation where a critical cancer drug, something people rely on, just vanishes from pharmacy shelves nationwide. And not because of, a hurricane or something, but because a single factory halfway across the world got shut down. Safety issues.
Right. It sounds extreme, but it happens.
Or think about the cost of your everyday prescriptions, how that price might actually be shaped by these high-stakes diplomatic dances and trade fights happening thousands of miles away.
It's all connected, much more than people realize.
That's exactly the intricate high-stakes reality we're diving into today.
Yeah, it's a really critical intersection.
We're taking a deep dive into the, profoundly complex relationship between the United States and India. Specifically, we're zeroing in on the pharmaceutical sector.
A huge part of their trade relationship.
Absolutely. And it's not just about dollars and cents or trade balances. It's about global health. It's about economic power, international relations.
It touches on so many things.
All tangled together. We'll be exploring the recent buzz around these proposed tariffs and maybe more fundamentally, the intellectual property concerns that, tie it all together.
The IT issues are definitely foundational here.
And how all of this shapes what you pay and maybe even whether you can get certain essential medicines.
For this deep dive, we've gathered, a really fascinating stack of recent reports, some very insightful analyses. It gives us a look from a few different angles.
Good. What are we working with?
We've got the big one, the 2025 Special 301 report from the Office of the United States Trade Representative. That's, the official U.S. government take on IP protection abroad.
Right, the annual report card, basically.
Exactly. Then we have detailed insights from economic think tanks like the Coalition for a Prosperous America. They tend to have a more protectionist view sometimes.
Okay.
And also the Council on Foreign Relations offering maybe a more globalist perspective. So different viewpoints there.
Balanced perspectives, good.
And crucially, we're drawing directly from statements and analyses from the Indian pharmaceutical industry itself, so we get their side of the story too.
Excellent. Hearing directly from them is key. So our mission today.
Our mission is really to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights from all this material.
Yeah, help make sense of it all.
Exactly. Help you understand the huge stakes involved for both countries, obviously, but also for global public health.
And maybe most directly for your own medicine cabinet.
Precisely. It's a compelling story, really. Economic interdependence, public health needs, and this constant diplomatic dance between two major powers.
Okay, so where do we start? To really get why this is so tense, we need to understand India's role, right? Their massive place in the global pharma market.
That's the perfect place to start. You really can't grasp the current situation without understanding why India is called the pharmacy of the world.
It's a common phrase, but what does it actually mean in practice?
Well, they've earned that moniker for a very good reason. It's not just a catchy phrase. Globally, India stands as the third largest pharmaceutical player by volume.
By volume, so sheer quantity of pills, vials.
Exactly. They produce an immense amount of medication. Now, in terms of market value, they rank 14th.
Okay, so high volume, lower average cost per unit.
Precisely. It points to their huge focus on high volume, cost-effective generic drugs rather than, the really high-priced, new patented medicines.
Got it. They're not a small player here.
Far from it. Their contribution is massive. Critically important for global access to medicine.
Give us some numbers. How big is their share?
Okay, get this. India accounts for a remarkable 20% of global generic drug exports.
Wow, 1/5.
1/5 of all generic medicines shipped worldwide. Your common antibiotics, diabetes meds, heart medications, a huge chunk originates from India.
Okay.
And it goes even further with vaccines. India supplies an astonishing 60% of the world's low-cost vaccines.
60%.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Think about that. More than half of all affordable vaccines used globally for measles, polio, tetanus, everything. They come from Indian manufacturers.
These aren't optional drugs. These are essentials. Lifesavers.
Absolutely. These are the bedrock medications and preventative tools distributed globally, often at prices that developing nations and even developed ones like the U.S. rely on.
So it really underpins a lot of global public health efforts.
A huge amount, especially in low and middle income countries. But the impact isn't just out there, it's measurable within India too.
How so?
While the availability of these affordable drugs has been directly linked to a 36% lower per person disease burden within India itself. That's data from 1990 to 2016.
So accessible medicine directly translates to better health outcomes.
Profoundly. But the ripple effect is global. Think about treatments for HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria. Affordable Indian generics made widespread treatment possible in Africa and other regions.
Right, enabling programs that wouldn't have been feasible otherwise?
Exactly. It allows health organizations worldwide to stretch their budgets, reach more people. It's not just an economic story, it's a massive public health achievement.
Okay, so that's the global picture.
Okay.
What about the direct U.S.-India connection? The trade numbers?
That's where the reliance becomes really, really clear. Almost stark, actually.
Uh-huh.
India's total pharmaceutical exports topped $30 billion in their last fiscal year 2025.
$30 billion.
Now, over 1/3 of that huge figure, more than $10 billion, went directly to the United States.
Wow. So the U.S. is a primary customer.
The major customer. It's a dedicated pipeline. And if you look at it in volume terms, it's even more striking. India accounts for about 40% of all generic drug imports into the U.S.
30%. Almost half of all generics Americans use.
Pretty much. Think about the medications that fill countless prescriptions every day. The most affordable options.
Right.
Nearly half originate from India.
That's a staggering level of dependence.
It is. It's not a niche supplier. It's foundational to the U.S. system's ability to provide affordable generics. If you take a generic drug, odds are very high it came from India.
Which brings us back to the core tension, this profound reliance. It raises that critical question for everyone. Patients, policymakers.
What happened?
Yeah, what happens when geopolitics gets messy, or when new trade policies like these big tariffs enter the picture?
The scale means even small disruptions could have huge effects.
Outsized consequences, yeah.
Yeah.
Impacting supply, cost, potentially the health of millions. How resilient is this global pharmacy, really? And who pays the price if it gets tested?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question right now.
Okay, let's zoom in then on the immediate sparks flying, the tariffs. Recent ones, proposed ones. The ones really shaking up this critical trade dynamic.
Right. These aren't abstract economic ideas anymore.
No, these policies could directly hit your wallet, your access to medicine. So what's actually being proposed?
Well, former President Trump's administration has been very clear about wanting to change things regarding pharmaceutical imports. It started, during the campaign with talk of small tariffs. Seemed minor.
Okay, small tariffs.
But the rhetoric ramped up fast. Very fast. Suddenly, there were warnings of, and this is a quote, a whopping levels of 150 to 250% on pharma imports.
Whoa, 150 to 250%. That's game-changing.
Absolutely. To be implemented, they said, within 1 to 1.5 years. More recently, a specific lower number was announced, 26% levies specifically on Indian imports.
Still very high, but not 250.
True, but, and this is crucial, that 26% came with an explicit warning. It could still rise as high as 250%.
So the big stick is still there, using tariffs as a major bargaining chip.
Exactly, a powerful lever. It signals a clear intent to potentially impose massive cost increases, fundamentally changing the game for imported drugs. A tariff that high wouldn't just squeeze margins, it would likely make many Indian generics unaffordable in the U.S.
So what's the actual status right now? Have these hit yet?
Okay, important clarification. As of August 12, 2025, the Indian government stated that no additional tariffs have been imposed by the U.S. specifically on Indian pharmaceutical and electronics exports yet.
Yes, okay, so those key sectors are spared for now.
For now. But the situation isn't calm. There are already reciprocal measures from India showing this tit-for-tat dynamic in the broader trade picture.
India is hitting back on other goods.
Yes. A reciprocal tariff of 25% has already been imposed by India on certain goods exported from India to the U.S. That went into effect August 7th.
And that affects a lot of trade.
It impacts about 55% of India's total merchandise exports to the U.S., so a very significant chunk, even if it's not pharma and electronics specifically being hit by new U.S. tariffs yet.
Okay. And there's more coming from India.
Yes, there's an additional 25% ad valorem duty on certain goods set to take effect from August 27th. That would effectively raise the total Indian tariff on some U.S. products to 50% by August 28th.
Wow, 50%. Okay, so even if pharma isn't directly hit by new U.S. tariffs yet, the overall trade relationship is definitely heating up.
Very much so. The tensions are clearly escalating across different sectors.
And what's driving the U.S. side, specifically on these potential pharma tariffs? Is it just about trade balance?
Well, what's really fascinating, and maybe complicates things, is the broader geopolitical context being cited.
Ah, okay. Like what?
Reports indicate President Trump specifically mentioned India's ongoing purchases of Russian oil when ordering a hike in duties on its products.
Russian oil. So this isn't just about pharma economics.
It suggests not. It suggests these tariff talks are deeply tangled up with geopolitics, trying to influence India's foreign policy, its alignment.
Using trade as leverage for broader strategic goals.
Exactly. Maintaining diplomatic ties, maybe pressuring India on its relationship with Russia amidst all the global uncertainty. It adds this whole other layer.
So it's not just a trade dispute. It's part of a bigger international chessboard.
That seems to be a significant part of the picture, yes, where economic tools are used for political ends.
Okay, so what does all this mean for the players on the ground? You've got the Indian manufacturers, crucial suppliers, and then American consumers, heavily reliant on these drugs. The fallout goes way beyond spreadsheets, right? Hits public health, affordability.
Directly.
Now, the Indian drug makers, they've pushed back hard, haven't they? They issued a pretty strong warning.
They did. A very clear message. These proposed tariffs, especially the really high ones, they argue, will ultimately hurt the U.S., not India.
That's a bold claim. Hurt the U.S. more. How do they figure that? Let's unpack their argument.
Okay, so a spokesperson for India's main pharma association stated flatly, it would be extremely difficult, basically impossible, for Indian companies to just absorb these massive extra costs.
The margins on generics are thin already, right?
Exactly. They operate on volume, efficiency, slap a 26%, let alone 150% or 250% tariff on top.
Yeah.
It wipes out the profit, makes them totally uncompetitive in the U.S. market.
But they wouldn't just eat the cost.
No. They say they'd likely have no choice but to shift their focus, redirect their production to other global regions, places where the market conditions are better, the trade is more stable.
So not necessarily a threat, just business reality.
That's how they frame it, a logical business decision. The U.S. market simply becomes too expensive to serve under those conditions, so they'd send their capacity elsewhere.
Okay. But the core of their argument is about the impact on the U.S. consumer, right?
Yes, that's the crux of it. And I quote again, more than Indian companies, the U.S. consumers will be affected the most because no other country can provide the generic drugs to the U.S. at India's price and scale.
Price and scale, that combination is key.
Absolutely. They emphasize that the U.S. is already dealing with persistent drug shortages. We hear about it all the time, antibiotics, chemo drugs.
Yeah, it's a constant problem.
So their argument is, impose these high tariffs, drive out Indian suppliers, and you will severely worsen this existing shortage crisis.
Making it harder, maybe impossible, for Americans to get essential meds affordably.
Potentially rendering consumers helpless is the term they used. They're essentially saying their low-cost, high-volume supply isn't just nice to have, it's irreplaceable in the short to medium term without major pain for Americans.
Because if India pulls back, who fills that gap?
That's their next point. They highlight a critical timeline issue.
Okay.
Even if U.S. companies decided today to bring production back home, build new factories,
That takes time. A lot of time.
a minimum of 2-3 years, they estimate. Realistically, often longer. You need approvals, complex setups,
FDA hurdles, yeah.
and, they point out, no other country, except maybe China.
Which has its own issues with the U.S.
Exactly. No other country has the current capacity to make generics at the sheer scale India provides.
So the immediate question is, who meets U.S. demand in that 2-3 year gap if Indian supply drops off significantly?
And India's answer is pretty stark. No one. Not at the same price, not at the same scale, which means Americans face either huge price hikes, severe shortages, or probably both.
That's a powerful argument. But are they just drawing a line in the sand? Or are they willing to talk?
Well, despite these strong warnings, the industry, through groups like Pharmaceutical, says it remains committed to constructive engagement.
Okay, so the door isn't slammed shut.
No. Their stated goal is to ensure uninterrupted, resilient supply chains. Trying to balance healthcare needs with trade objectives, it suggests they want to negotiate, find solutions.
Putting the onus back on the U.S., maybe? Find a way forward together?
Seems like it. Suggesting cooperation, not confrontation, is the better path.
Okay, that perspective from India that U.S. consumers stand to lose the most really forces you to think about the real-world impact. Patients, hospitals. It could be about access to life-saving treatments, not just prices. But if India is so critical, it begs the question again, Why is the U.S. even considering these tariffs?
Right. There must be strong underlying concerns driving this.
What are those U.S. concerns? Let's flip the coin and look at the U.S. side. Why are they flagging India using tools like the USTR report to the point of risking this disruption?
Indeed. Let's look through the U.S. lens now. The USTR's Special 301 report is the key document here.
The annual IP report card we mentioned.
Exactly. And it's not just some random list, it's mandated by Congress. Its job is to identify countries that, in the U.S. view, deny adequate and effective protection of intellectual property rights or fair and equitable market access to American IP holders.
So protecting patents, copyrights, trade secrets.
All of that. And it's not just abstract principles. The report explicitly links this to U.S. economic interests, minimum jobs.
How many jobs are we talking?
They estimate 63 million American jobs are directly or indirectly tied to IP-intensive industries.
63 million. Wow.
And those industries contribute 41% to the U.S. GDP. So for the U.S. government, protecting IP isn't just about fairness to companies. It's seen as vital for national economic security, jobs, innovation.
Okay. And how does the report categorize countries?
It uses lists. There's a priority watch list for countries with the most serious, egregious problems, and a watch list for countries with specific issues needing attention.
And where does India fall?
India, in the 2025 report, remains on the priority watch list.
Priority, meaning significant ongoing concerns from the U.S. perspective.
Exactly. It signals that, in the USTR's view, India hasn't sufficiently addressed long-standing issues related to IP protection and enforcement.
Okay, let's dive into the specifics then. What are the main complaints about India's IP environment?
The report calls India one of the world's most challenging major economies with respect to protection and enforcement of IP. That's pretty strong language.
Very strong. What are the key problem areas?
Okay, first, patent issues. This is a big one for pharma. U.S. stakeholders report a potential threat of patent revocations.
Meaning a granted patent could be taken away.
Potentially, yes. Imagine investing billions, getting a patent, then having it challenged and possibly canceled later under Indian law. Creates huge uncertainty.
Yeah, that would make companies very nervous about investing.
Definitely. There's also deep concern about how India applies its patentability criteria, especially Section 3 of their Patents Act.
Section 3, what's that about?
It basically makes it harder to patent new forms of known substances unless they show significantly enhanced efficacy. This particularly hits pharma, where incremental innovations are common and crucial.
So improvements on existing drugs might not get patent protection.
It's much harder, and this fundamentally challenges the incentive to invest in that kind of ongoing drug development. Why spend the money if you can't protect the result?
Right. It could slow down new treatments coming to market everywhere.
Could do. Then there are complaints about just how long it takes to get a patent in India, an average of 7 years overall.
7 years.
And even longer for pharma patents granted. Between 2020 and 2024, average wait time was 9.5 years.
Almost a decade. That's half the patent life gone just waiting.
Exactly. Plus, excessive reporting requirements adding costs and reportedly no effective way to resolve patent disputes early on leads to long, expensive legal fights.
Okay, so patents are a major headache. What else?
Second, data protection. This is about the clinical trial data companies submit to get drugs approved.
The safety and efficacy data.
Right. Huge investment goes into generating that data. The U.S. says India provides inadequate protection against competitors unfairly using or disclosing that data.
So a generic company could potentially use the original company's data to get their own version approved faster.
That's the concern. It undermines the original investment. And new rules in India related to biological resources, the Biological Diversity Rules of 2024, have apparently added more burdens and concerns for foreign companies.
Okay. Patents, data protection. What about copyright?
Third, copyright and piracy. The report notes high levels of piracy persist, especially online. Movies, music, software, books.
The usual suspects.
Yeah. Things like stream ripping, illegally copying from licensed sites, illicit streaming devices, IPTV services offering pirated content. Concerns about a specific part of India's Copyright Act, Section 31D, related to internet broadcasting licenses.
Okay.
And the need for India to fully implement international digital copyright treaties. Plus, camcording, recording movies in theaters, still a problem originating from India, among others.
Got it. So digital piracy is a big focus too. Number 4.
Fourth, trade secrets. This is a big gap. India currently lacks specific laws, civil or criminal, just for protecting trade secrets.
Things like secret formulas or manufacturing processes.
Exactly. Things that give a company an edge but aren't patented. Without specific laws, it's hard to get effective remedies if someone steals your trade secret. Fines might be too low to deter theft.
And legislation to fix this is slow.
A law commission recommended it, but progress is slow, leaving valuable info vulnerable.
Okay. And lastly, any overarching issues?
Finally, yes, enforcement challenges. A general perception of poor coordination between India's national and state-level law enforcement on IP issues.
It makes it hard to actually catch the bad guys.
And penalties are often too low to be a real deterrent. Plus, India imposes high customs duties on IP-intensive products like medical devices and pharmaceuticals, adding another cost layer for legitimate U.S. goods.
Okay, so that's a pretty long list of IP concerns from the U.S. side. Patents, data, copyright, trade secrets, enforcement.
It covers a lot of ground, yes.
But wait, even if all those IP issues were somehow magically resolved tomorrow, there's another whole layer of U.S. concern that's emerged more recently, right? Something more about the physical supply chain itself.
That's right. Beyond IP, there's a separate but equally critical set of worries about the reliance on imported drugs and the quality risks involved.
This sounds like the Coalition for a Prosperous America report you mentioned.
Exactly. Their analysis really digs into the dangers of the current setup, focusing less on legal rights and more on the tangible safety and stability of the drug supply, stuff that directly hits patients.
Okay, what's their main point?
Their headline argument is about dangerous reliance. They argue the U.S. pharma supply chain has become dangerously dependent on imports and foreign control.
Dangerously dependent. How bad is it?
The numbers are pretty striking. In 2024, the U.S. imported over 828,000 metric tons of pharmaceuticals.
Metric tons, that sounds like a lot.
It's 7 times the level from the year 2000.
Seven-fold increase in imports in about 25 years.
Yes. And the report argues this isn't just demand growth. They call it a dangerous policy failure, a surrender of U.S. production for cheaper but riskier foreign drugs.
And this contributes to the trade deficit, too.
Massively. A record $118.3 billion pharma trade deficit in 2024. They argue this erodes U.S. control over a critical sector, leaving the country vulnerable.
Okay, dangerous reliance. What's next?
Then there's the issue of API dominance and vulnerability. APIs are the active pharmaceutical ingredients.
The actual medicine part of the medicine.
Exactly, the core chemical compound. While India supplies many finished generic drugs, the deeper vulnerability is that India itself relies heavily on China for 70–80% of its APIs.
So there's another layer of dependency behind India.
A huge one. And China controls maybe 80–90% of the global API production.
Wow. So the whole global generic supply chain rests heavily on China.
The report describes it as balanced on a razor's edge.
That's a scary image. A razor's edge.
It means a small disruption in China, a factory problem, a trade spat, a natural disaster could instantly cascade through India's production and then directly hit the availability and cost of essential drugs right here in the U.S.
A profound single-point fragility.
That's the argument, which leads directly to the next point. Single points of failure.
We saw an example of this recently, didn't we? With a cancer drug.
Tragically, yes. A stark example in 2023. The FDA shut down one single plant in India.
Just one plant.
Yes, but that one plant supplied 50% half of the U.S. supply of cisplatin chemotherapy.
A vital cancer drug. Why was it shut down?
Severe safety violations, really disturbing stuff mentioned in reports like freshly torn up documents doused with acid, a cascade of failure in quality control.
Unbelievable. And the result?
Nationwide shortages of that cancer drug, patients' treatments delayed across the U.S. It showed how the failure of just one foreign facility could have immediate, devastating consequences here.
And the report says this isn't unique to cisplatin?
No. It highlights that many other essential drugs, common antibiotics, critical sedatives for surgery, are made in only 1 or 2 plants globally. And often those plants are in countries with, let's say, less rigorous oversight than the U.S.
That is a massive vulnerability. National security, public health.
Absolutely. Where the health of the nation can hinge on one factory abroad.
Okay. Reliance, API vulnerability, single points of failure. What else? Quality itself.
Yes. Finally, a documented quality and safety crisis. The FDA has reported widespread non-compliance with CGMP good manufacturing practices in facilities in both China and India.
CGMP, those are the basic rules for making safe, effective drugs, right?
The absolute bedrock standards, ensuring drugs are made consistently, safely. Non-compliance means basic rules are being broken.
What kind of problems are found?
Things like falsified test results, literally making up data to pass inspection, unsanitary conditions leading to contamination risks.
And have these led to actual harm?
Tragically, yes. The report states Indian factory violations have been directly tied to 8 U.S. patient deaths. And remember, the Chinese heparin contamination back in 2008, that killed dozens of Americans.
Horrific. These aren't just theoretical risks.
Not at all. And a 2025 study cited found Indian-made generics were 54% more likely to cause severe adverse events compared to their U.S.-made counterparts.
54% more likely. That's deeply concerning. What's the theory behind that?
The suggestion is that intense price pressure in the generic market encourages dangerous cost-cutting, sacrificing quality and safety to be the cheapest supplier.
And oversight isn't catching it all.
Well, hospitals often lack visibility into drug quality beyond just the basic FDA approval stamp. And foreign producers, the report argues, often face few real consequences for cutting corners.
Yeah.
Creates a kind of moral hazard.
Okay, so putting it all together.
Yeah.
It's a complex mess.
Definitely.
We have this huge, almost indispensable reliance on India for affordable generic supply. It props up the U.S. healthcare system in many ways. Yet simultaneously, the U.S. has these long-standing, serious IP concerns, anti-E, these growing, alarming worries about supply chain risks, quality, safety.
It's a classic catch-22.
Absolutely need the supply, but need the security and quality, need the affordability, but need the IP protection to drive future innovation. How do you square that circle?
That is the core challenge they're wrestling with right now in the negotiations.
Which brings us to those negotiations. Given these profound, often conflicting interests, economic needs versus IP versus safety versus geopolitics, how are the U.S. and India trying to navigate this minefield?
It's incredibly sensitive, yeah.
What's the main venue for trying to sort this out?
The primary arena is the ongoing India-U.S. bilateral trade agreement, the BTA negotiations.
BTA. Okay, these talks are seen as key.
Absolutely pivotal, hugely important. Both sides were aiming for an interim agreement by early July 2025.
Why that deadline?
It was strategically timed to try and get something done before President Trump might resume those sweeping global reciprocal tariffs after a 90-day pause he'd initiated.
So, real pressure to get a deal or face the tariff consequences.
Exactly. Failure could trigger the very tariffs they're trying to head off, especially in pharma, could cause massive disruption.
And what's the bigger ambition for this BTA? Is it just about tariffs?
Oh, much bigger. The stated goal is huge. Dramatically increase annual bilateral trade between the U.S. and India to $500 billion by 2030.
$500 billion, what is it now?
Around $190 billion currently, so a massive leap.
If they pull that off.
It would be historic. India would be the first country to sign such a comprehensive BTA with the U.S. during Trump's second term.
Which says a lot about the strategic importance of the relationship.
Absolutely. Underscores deep diplomatic, geopolitical ties, more than just trade. Negotiations started back in March 2025. They've already held 5 rounds.
So they're actively working on it.
Very actively. A 6th round was planned for August 24th in India. Continuous, high-level engagement.
Okay, so in these talks, what is India putting on the table to address U.S. concerns and try to head off those tariffs?
India's pharma industry has put forward some pretty bold strategic proposals. Shows they're serious about finding common ground.
Okay, like what?
First, on tariff exemptions. India proposed cutting its own import tariffs on U.S. pharmaceuticals.
Cutting their tariffs on U.S. drugs?
Yes, from the current 10% down to 0.
Wow, that's a significant offer. A reciprocal move.
Exactly. A clear gesture. Signals willingness to open their market more, potentially easing U.S. pressure. A direct response to calls for more market access.
Okay, tariff cuts. What about the IP issues? That's a huge sticking point for the U.S.
Right. Second proposal, IP legislation reforms. India suggested strengthening its IP framework, amending its Patents Act.
Addressing those USTR criticisms.
That seems to be the goal. Now, part of their motivation is to stop what they call evergreening by U.S. companies extending patents with minor tweaks.
Okay, but are they offering stronger protection overall?
Well, here's where it gets controversial. They also suggested reducing the patent exclusivity period for innovative drugs from the current 20 years.
Reducing patent life. Why?
Their stated goal is to speed up generic availability in India. But India is already considered a late launch market for new drugs.
Meaning new drugs arrive there later anyway.
Right. So critics worry that reducing exclusivity could paradoxically delay the entry of truly innovative drugs even further, making India less attractive for launches.
So it's a mixed bag on IP. Improve some things, potentially weaken others from the innovator perspective.
It looks like a complex proposal, trying to balance domestic access with meeting some U.S. demands.
Okay, what else is India offering?
Third, low-cost generic supply. This is a direct play to President Trump's focus on lowering U.S. drug prices.
Oh, direct.
Very concrete. They offer to supply generics to the U.S. at a big discount, 20% to 25% below the reference brand price for the first 3 years after the patent expires.
That's a significant discount.
And they added more, an additional 10% to 15% cost reduction over the next 7 years.
So a decade of steep discounts post-patent expiry. That's a powerful financial incentive for the U.S.
Definitely plays to U.S. consumer interests and highlights India's cost advantage.
Okay. Anything addressing the supply chain and domestic production concerns?
Yes. Fourth, U.S. manufacturing by Indian firms. Recognizing the push for Made in America, India is seeking targeted incentives for its companies willing to build API and finished drug factories inside the United States.
Indian companies building plants in the U.S.
Exactly. This aligns perfectly with the U.S. goal of reducing import reliance, bringing jobs and production onshore, potentially very attractive for the U.S. side.
Makes sense. One more.
Lastly, technology transfer. India wants greater access to critical advanced technologies for pharma R&D.
They want to boost their own innovation capabilities.
Yes, aiming for parity with other U.S. allies like Australia, the U.K., Japan. See it as vital for their long-term growth beyond just generics.
Okay, that's a comprehensive set of proposals from India.
Yeah.
How is the U.S. likely reacting to these? Are they receptive?
Well, the U.S. perspective seems nuanced. The Trump administration might consider tariff exemptions for specific drug categories, maybe where shortages are worst.
But not a blanket exemption.
Unlikely. And probably no full parity on export controls or broad tech transfer. Why? Because those underlying IPR concerns in India haven't gone away.
Still hesitant to share advanced tech if they feel the IP isn't secure.
Exactly. So the U.S. might lean towards more limited cooperation, maybe project-specific licenses for certain Indian companies.
Like that trust initiative?
Precisely. The India-U.S. Trust Initiative transforming the relationship utilizing strategic technology. It focuses on specific collaborations, like in biotech, that might be the model, targeted engagement, controlled tech sharing rather than wide-open access until IP issues are resolved more fully.
So it really is a strategic dance. Give and take. Each side protecting its interests, leveraging strengths.
While trying to address these critical public health needs that don't really care about borders.
It's a real testament to how complex these trade relationships are, especially in vital sectors like medicine. Nothing is simple.
Absolutely not.
You know, what's really interesting here is, while we've been focused intensely on the U.S.-India dynamic, that USTR Special 301 report you mentioned actually paints a much bigger picture, doesn't it?
It really does.
It shows that these intellectual property challenges aren't unique to India. They're global.
Exactly. That context is important. India's issues, while significant for this relationship, are part of a larger, ongoing international effort to protect innovation everywhere. It's not just a bilateral spat.
So what are some of those broader global IP enforcement challenges the USTR report highlights?
It details several really pervasive problems that pop up in multiple countries.
Okay, like what?
First, counterfeiting. This is just massive, truly global. The trade in fake and pirated goods was estimated at $464 billion back in 2019.
Almost $500 billion.
Yes, accounting for 2.5% of all global goods trade. And it's not just lost sales for companies. It's serious health and safety risks.
Especially with fake medicines.
Critically, counterfeit medicines, fake critical parts like semiconductors, car brakes, stuff that can fail catastrophically.
Where are most counterfeits coming from, according to the report?
China and Hong Kong accounted for over 93% of the value of fakes seized by U.S. Customs in FY24.
Over 93%. That's dominant.
Hugely dominant. But other significant source countries mentioned include India, Turkey, Vietnam, and there are key transit hubs, places fakes pass through, like Chile, Singapore, the UAE.
And how are counterfeiters getting goods across borders?
Increasingly using small packages shipped by express mail or post. harder to catch than big container loads, and selling directly to consumers via online marketplaces.
Where people might not realize they're buying fakes.
Exactly. Plus a legal hurdle. In many countries, Mexico, Pakistan, Colombia, even Canada, customs officials lack ex officio authority.
Meaning they can't seize goods just because they look fake?
Right. They often have to wait for the actual rights holder, the company, to file a formal complaint about that specific shipment. Slows enforcement down massively.
Okay, counterfeiting is huge. What else is a major global issue?
Second, online and broadcast piracy. The internet, predictably, is an incredibly efficient way to steal copyrighted content.
Movies, music, software.
All of it. High levels reported in many countries. Argentina, China, India, Mexico, Russia, Vietnam. It takes many forms. Stream ripping, illegally copying from Spotify or YouTube. Illicit streaming devices, those dodgy boxes and IPTV services that just rebroadcast paid channels or movies illegally. Even old-fashioned signal theft by cable operators in some places.
And recording movies in theaters.
Camcording, yeah. Still a big problem, with Russia, China, and India mentioned as sources. And many countries lack specific laws or effective enforcement against these newer digital piracy methods.
So the law hasn't kept up with the tech.
In many places, no. Creating safe havens for pirates.
Okay. Counterfeiting, online piracy. What's third?
Third, forced technology transfer and indigenous innovation policies. This is a really sensitive one.
What does that mean?
Governments, notably China and Indonesia mentioned here, implement policies that basically pressure or even require U.S. companies to hand over their technology.
Hand over their tech just to do business there.
Yes. As a condition for market access or getting investment approvals, maybe directing state-owned companies to demand tech on non-commercial terms, or favoring locally developed tech in government contracts.
That sounds like it directly undermines the value of the company's innovation.
Absolutely. Creates unfair market distortions, forces companies to give away their competitive edge, discourages them from bringing their best tech into those markets.
Okay. What's next on the global list?
Fourth, geographical indications, or GIs. This is a major point of friction, especially with the European Union.
GIs, like champagne or Parma ham, protecting regional names.
Exactly. But the EU system protects thousands of terms that elsewhere are considered common product names, like Parmesan, Feta, Havarti.
Names U.S. producers have used for generations.
Right. So the EU's aggressive push for GI protection globally can undermine existing U.S. trademarks for these common names, block U.S. products from markets if they use those names.
Like U.S. companies can't sell Parmesan cheese in some countries.
That's the issue. It creates trade barriers. The report notes the huge imbalance in cheese trade between the U.S. and EU, partly blamed on GIs. The U.S. is fighting this, trying to ensure GIs don't block common names.
Okay, one more global issue.
Finally, government use of unlicensed software. Still a problem.
Governments themselves using pirated software.
Yes. Agencies in countries like Argentina, China, Ecuador, Guatemala, Indonesia, Pakistan are cited as continuing to use unlicensed software.
That sets a terrible example, doesn't it?
That does. Undermines respect for IT law, but it also creates huge security risks for those governments themselves.
Oh.
Unlicensed software doesn't get security updates. Makes government systems prime targets for hackers, data breaches, so the U.S. urges them to clean up their act for IP reasons and their own national security.
So, connecting this all back, these global problems, counterfeiting, piracy, forced tech transfer, GI disputes, government software piracy, they show this isn't just a U.S.-India issue.
Not at all. It shows the constant worldwide need for vigilance, strong laws, international cooperation to protect innovation across all sectors.
It's a multi-front battle, really, affecting trade, future innovation, even the safety of products we use every day.
It truly is.
So as we wrap up our deep dive here, what's the big takeaway? Our conversation really reveals this deeply complex, intertwined reality in U.S.-India pharma trade.
Absolutely. Nuanced is definitely the word.
On one hand, India is just indispensable as a global supplier of affordable meds. That scale, that cost-effectiveness, the U.S. relies on it heavily.
Critically reliant, yes.
But on the other hand, the U.S. keeps pushing hard for stronger IP protection, for better supply chain security, for quality assurance, all while these trade tensions and bigger geopolitical games are playing out.
It's a very delicate balancing act.
Which makes those ongoing bilateral trade agreement talks just incredibly critical, doesn't it?
Immensely critical. The outcome there. It's not just about hitting that ambitious $500 billion trade target by 2030.
No, it sets a precedent,
A
right?
huge precedent for how major economies try to balance these competing needs. affordable access to essentials versus protecting intellectual property.
The whole debate around tariffs, IP reforms, manufacturing incentives,
Yeah.
it just highlights the huge economic and public health stakes.
Stakes that affect millions of people's access to medicine and the future pipeline of new drugs. It all hangs in the balance of these talks.
You know, this whole situation, it really leaves you with a big question to ponder. As these complex negotiations play out, how do we find that right balance between ensuring everyone has affordable access to the medicines they need today, especially generics,
And diligently protecting the innovation, the IP that fuels the development of new treatments for tomorrow.
because that balance, it doesn't just impact abstract trade figures. It hits our health, our security, our quality of life worldwide.
It really does.
So what would a truly resilient, truly equitable, and truly innovation-sustaining global pharmaceutical supply chain actually look like? One that serves both public health and economic growth.
That's the ideal, isn't it?
Yeah. And then maybe the final thought to leave with everyone is, whose ultimate responsibility is it to build and maintain that kind of critical global infrastructure for the future?